Hello everyone, I'm your learning guide today. Before I start, hit the like and subscribe button. If you don't understand, drop a comment and I'll visit the problem. HTML. This stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It is used to design and develop web pages, and it's a markup language. Markup languages are used to annotate text with information about how it should be processed or displayed. You can use HTML to create links, images, videos, forms, and other interactive elements that make websites so user-friendly. HTML was invented by Tim Berners-Lee in 1990, and it was also the first programming language ever created. To date, HTML remains one of the most popular programming languages in the world and is essential for anyone who wants to build websites. In this series, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about HTML from scratch. And in this lesson, we're going to cover these topics. First of all, what is HTML? What makes up an HTML document? How do you write comments? And we're also going to create our first web page together. And if you want to follow along with me in this lesson, you don't need any software installed. All you need to do is open your favorite text editor and create a new file. You can name it whatever you want, but make sure to have a HTML extension. If you don't know what a text editor is, you can use something like Notepad on Windows or TextEdit on Mac. But I recommend using Visual Studio Code. It's free, and there are many reasons why it's better than Notepad. For example, it has syntax highlighting, which will make learning HTML much easier. Now let's get started. The very first thing you need to understand is what makes up an HTML document. In fact, let's look at this document. Domain. You can see that we have this angle bracket followed by this declaration that says this is an HTML document. Then we have some kind of content here. Let's put a heading inside the angle brackets. We have another declaration that says this is an HTML document. This declaration is called a doctype declaration, and its purpose is to tell the browser that this is an HTML document. It's like telling the browser, hey, this is an HTML document, so render it with the HTML parser. Currently, we are using HTML version 5, so the doctype declaration for HTML5 is this. After the doctype declaration, we have the root element of the HTML document, which is the HTML element. Every single HTML document must have an HTML element. Inside the opening and closing tags of the HTML element, we put the content of the HTML document. For example, we can add a heading right here and then close the HTML tag. We can even add more content here like a paragraph, but let us add a line break just so it's easier to see where the different elements end. Now we can close the HTML tag and save the file. But let's take a look at what we just did. Open the file in the browser and you'll see that we have a heading. Now if we add a paragraph here, you'll see that the paragraph also shows up in the browser. As you might have noticed, HTML elements are always in pairs. There is an opening tag and a closing tag. Opening tags have no content between them, and they start with a less than sign and end with a greater than sign. Closing tags are also in this format, but they have the / before the element name. Now, not all HTML elements have content between their opening and closing tags. For example, the BR element, which creates a line break, doesn't have any content between its tags. Another thing to notice is that HTML element names are case insensitive. This means that HTML and HTML will have the same result. The same goes for H1, H1, and HTML. Also, there are some special characters in HTML that we need to escape. For example, if I try to write this sentence literally in HTML, you'll see that we have this error. The reason is because the ampersand character is a reserved character in HTML. So we need to escape it by writing ampersand. Escaping reserved characters is usually unnecessary when writing regular text. However, it's a good practice to learn. Now let's quickly talk about comments. Comments are ignored by the browser, and they're used to explain what the code does. To create a comment, simply type / and then write whatever you want. The comment will go from the / until the next line. Now, if you want to create a multi-line comment, you can use this method. Write the opening comment tag right here, then put whatever you want, and then write the closing comment tag. Now let's create our first web page. We're going to start by creating a heading, which is an H1 element. In order to create a heading, we start by typing H1. Then we put whatever we want inside the parentheses. In this case, we want to say my first web page. Then we close the H1 tag. Now we're going to add a paragraph. To add a paragraph, we're going to type P, then add the content of the paragraph inside the parentheses. And then we close the paragraph tag. Now we're going to save the file and open it in the browser, and we're going to see that we have a heading and a paragraph. There are many ways to format text. For example, we can use the bold element to make the text bold, and we can also use the italic element to make the text italic. We can even combine elements like making a phrase bold and italic. Now let's try something else. We're going to add an ordered list. To do that, we're going to type OL. Then we're going to open the list by writing the opening bracket. Then we're going to add the items of the list. For example, item 1, item 2, item 3. And then we're going to close the list by writing the closing bracket. Now we're going to save the file, and we're going to see that we have an ordered list. Now you might have noticed that when I added the list, I used the Shift key to indent. That's because in HTML we use indentation to show the hierarchy of elements. However, indentation is not required. So here is the code without indentation. Now if we open it in the browser, we're still going to see the same ordered list. Next, let's add an image. To add an image, we're going to use the img element. The image element has a lot of attributes. We're only going to use two, the src attribute and the alt attribute. The src attribute specifies the path of the image. So let's add an image path right here. The alt attribute is used to describe the image. So let's say this is a picture of a cat. Now we're going to save the file and open it in the browser. And you're going to see that we have an image here. Let's add a link to the image. To add a link, we're going to use the element. So we're going to wrap the image inside an element. Now we need to specify where the link goes. To do that, we're going to add the ref attribute and set it to the URL we want to link to. For example, let's add the URL of W3 Schools right here. Now if we save the file and open it in the browser, we're going to see a link. And if we click on it, we're going to go to the W3 Schools website. Now there are many things you can do with HTML. For example, you can add tables, forms, and even embed videos. I'm going to show you how to embed a video. To embed a video, we're going to use the video element. The video element has an src attribute that specifies the video source. Let's add a video source right here. Then we're going to close the video tag. Now let's add a few controls. Controls allow you to control the video. So we're going to add the controls attribute right here. Now let's save the file and open it in the browser. And you're going to see that we have a video player right here. There are a lot of things you can do with HTML, but that's going to be for the next lessons. In this lesson, we learn what HTML is, what makes up an HTML document, how to write comments, and we also created our first web page. Thank you for watching. See you in the next lesson. If you want to learn more personally, visit the link in the description.